Hello, Henry.
Hey, Pete. How's it going?
Good to see you. Good
Good
to
to
see
see you
you.
too. Thanks for having me.
I'm loving the office that you're in today. It's beautiful. Um, Everybody, Henry doesn't need any introduction here. He's joined us on Modern Sales Pros Revenue Excellence Summits a few times, but I'm really excited to have him here today to kind of talk about a number of cool things that Zoominfo has been up to in the last bit. Some things that are coming down the pike here. For folks who don't know me, my name is Pete Kazanjy. I'm one of the founders of Atrium. Atrium is an AI sales management software platform that helps sales organizations improve the performance of their reps and teams and managers through the better application of data. I'm also one of the founders of Modern Sales Pros. You folks probably are familiar with Henry, but Henry, maybe you can just give folks a little bit of an introduction as to how you became the founder or how you became the CEO of Zoominfo.
Sure. So I'm Henry Shuck. I'm the founder and CEO of Zoominfo. I founded the company 17 years ago. I was 23 years old in my law school dorm. And I actually worked for a similar company called iProfile while I was in college. And learned everything that there was about software, or everything that was available about software as a service in 2000 to 2005 as we grew this annual recurring revenue subscription database from 300,000 in revenue to $5 million in revenue. I left, I went to law school, and about a year later founded what would become Zoominfo. I put $25,000 on my credit card. My co-founder put $25,000 on his credit card. And we said, let's go and build a business that helps salespeople identify who to target, have the contact information on who to target, know which companies are in their territory, and then just keep that information constantly updated. And over the last 17 years, we've added a bunch of software, a bunch of new data on top of that to really make going to market much more modern today than it's ever been. And our vision is to continue to modernize the way companies, from a pallet manufacturer in Georgia to the largest Fortune 10 companies in the world, identify their target market and go to market against them.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that specifically, the proliferation of data types, because it's a powerful thing, but on the flip side, it can kind of add complexity as well. And I know that this is something that you guys have been thinking about quite a bit, where adding incremental kind of like data sources or data facets, or use intent data, attributes, etc. And then it's all well and good for those things to be in the cupboard per se, right? But if you don't know how to necessarily cook with them as a customer, then what's the upside there? So maybe we can talk a little bit about some of the work that you guys have been doing to kind of facilitate like customers getting, being at the bleeding edge of adopting those new attributes, those new data facets and what have you.
Totally. So look, I think what happened was, at the beginning, you would add a new data facet or a data attribute that would be really valuable, and our customers would use them on their own. So for example, I want to know at the beginning, every company that has recently started using some new technology. And so I want to know every company that just started using Salesforce or SAP or Exactly or Coupa or Tableau, because maybe I'm a consulting partner for them, or maybe I know that when a company stopped using QuickBooks and then started using NetSuite, that they're sophisticating fast. And if you're sophisticating your financial system that fast, then you're probably sophisticating your cloud hosting or your infrastructure or whatever else that was.
Something. Yeah.
And so you could use that in a silo. And so you could say, just show me all the companies that just moved from QuickBooks to NetSuite. I'm going to focus on those companies. And then we said, okay, now let's add intent data to tell you which companies are actually in market for your products and services. And so I'm going to move over here to intent data. I'm just going to use intent data. And then we said, okay, well, let us tell you all of the new executives who, or the new people at companies who used to use your products and services, or who were your main points of contact when you sold to them before. Great. Now you use that in a silo. And then let's tell you all the companies that are on your website. Let's de-anonymize your website traffic, because today only 1% to 2% of the people who show up on your website actually identify themselves to you. What about that other 98% of people? Let's start telling you who those people are. Great. Now I'm going to use that in a silo. And all of these, they actually are valuable in a silo. Like if we continue to use the cupboard analogy, Pete, you can go like, I could just use salt when I cook. Yeah. I could maybe in some cases just use whatever, crushed red pepper on a pizza. But what people really want to be able to do is, how do I take all of them? How do I take intent and a champion move, and whether they're in my first party data, whether they're interacting with me or they came to a webinar or some other, interaction with my company, pull that all together to prioritize who I should be going after. That's not a new concept, right? Like if you go,
it's historically has been a huge pain in the ass to actually do.
Yes, historically a huge pain in the ass. And if you've been around this space as long as I have, or Pete, as long as you have, you'll remember like there was that moment where there was Infer, FlipTop, Everstring, Sales Predict, all of these companies who were trying to do that in, 2010, 2011. And no one really like hit pay dirt, but conceptually, that is the holy grail, right? Just prioritize who I should be contacting so that and why? Because I want to deploy my limited sales resources in the most impactful way possible. I want to be able to take my sales resources and have them not waste an ounce of time go after exactly who I should be going to that will convert at the highest rate to closed won opportunities. And I think like over the last decade, we've introduced a bunch of additional attributes, and the database technology has made it a lot easier to combine all of that data. And then AI technology has made it a lot easier to pull the insights out of that in a simplified way. And so today in our Marketing OS product and our Sales OS product, we're releasing something called Account Fit Score that does exactly that. It takes your first party data. It takes our third, Zoominfo's data, all of those signals, pulls them together to prioritize for sales and marketing where they should be spending their resources. Because your resources are your most valuable asset, your most valuable, your biggest spend in your sales organization. And so how do you deploy them in the most efficient way? I think that is something that everybody at companies big and small are focused on today.
Yeah, and I think, the way that people have historically tried to do this is just like munging together data like crazy in Google Sheets or Excel or what have you. Like I remember doing this with Discover.org a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, and at my last software company, Talent Bin, where we would munge together data that had been like, using using offshore workers to kind of scrape data off of. At the time, I don't even think like LinkedIn Sales Navigator was around. It was like we were using LinkedIn Recruiter actually, and then munging that together with firmographic and technographic stuff. And the reason why it would make sense to do it was because the open rates and the reply rates associated with the customization that you could do using those smart facets that had been kind of kludged together, kind of made the juice worth the squeeze, if you will. But the problem was that we would do it like, I don't know, if I said we did it once a quarter, I'd totally be lying. We would probably do it like every 6 months at most. And it was just a huge kind of pain. And so I think the hope would be that it's something that like you could kind of set and forget and have it continually being refreshed. And I think that's kind of what the Marketing OS stuff helps facilitate now.
Yeah, that's exactly what Account Fit Score does. Now, back in the day, that was really expensive compute. And that's why you didn't really see this take off. But to run that compute was really expensive. Today, it's much less expensive to pull all that data together and and then do a real-time munging of all of that data. Now, if you're a small business today and you're like, man, how do I bring all of that together? I don't know how to do it. We should also remember that any one piece of that, any one of those attributes or facets are very valuable in and of themselves. If you're not doing anything with de-anonymizing your website traffic and building an automated motion behind it, just start there. If you're not doing anything with intent data to prioritize your accounts, just start there. Or if you're not doing anything with identifying when your key buyers are changing within accounts that you want to sell to, you can start there too. So there are places to start, and don't get overwhelmed with, oh my God, in this thing, perfect is absolutely the enemy of good. That's not the case in everything, but in this, for sure, you don't want to strive after perfect when good can drive an increased conversion rate and better results for your business.
Yeah, I mean, just the champion move stuff by itself is a great example. And usually the way that we do this in our kind of marketing and pipeline organization is we look to kind of stand up a new channel like once a quarter, maybe twice, if we're as a treat. And then once we get it nailed, then it's on autopilot. So like a good example of this is we have we have pretty vocal champions in organizations, and actually what we use is usage data from a product called Census that allows us to send kind of page view totals onto a Salesforce contact object. That then we then use as a mechanism, like if somebody gets above 500 page views, or if they get above 15 days active in a trailing 30-day period, it flips a bit on that contact object, and so then our kind of champion tracking software pays attention to it. And I wish everyone got there. That's more of a CS thing, but like when we have people who are like boiling, if you will, we want to like hold on to them like crazy. And so what happens is when they move, we have like a whole campaign that then just like fires off once a month, where it's just like, all right, cool, here's all the people who have moved. And like, when you have many, many hundreds of customers, and like you guys' case, when you have like tens and tens of thousands of customers, it turns out there's a lot of people moving quite a bit. Even if like average tenure is like 24 months or 36 months or whatever, you have a lot of people moving. And so literally what we just do is we just hit them up. We're like, oh, you landed the new place. We'd love to send you a bottle of champagne. Our average selling price is like $25K. So like sending somebody a bottle, like a $50 bottle of like Veuve Clicquot in order to like get a meeting on the calendar is kind of a no-brainer. And so at this point, like that just runs. Like I think we stood that up like probably like 4 quarters ago, right? Maybe 6 quarters ago or whatever. And it just runs, and it's just like another source of like new opportunity creation. And so like, we did that. And then it's now kind of like, it's just
operationalized. Industrialized.
It's just operationalized on the calendar, right? And like, some biz ops person like wakes up and then like facilitates it, and then, a bunch of opportunities come out of it, which is great. And then the next quarter we move on to a next thing. And I think that that's a really great way of going about that. If you're a revenue operations person or a marketing operations person, is not avoid boiling the ocean, but instead get a win going where you can then prove the ROI and prove the pipe that's coming out of whatever program you're excited to try.
And then maybe, Pete, I can just try to say that back, because I think it encapsulates what you should be doing from a RevOps perspective. So number one, it starts with some play, right? Some go-to-market play. We call them GTM plays. If you're looking for any ideas there, we have 100 of them that we've open sourced on our website that you can find. But this play is a champions tracking play. And so, if there are hundreds of other plays, and you could go to your best sales reps and you could say, hey, tell me what you do that drives the highest conversion in your pipeline. And they'll tell you, like, I look for this, I look for that, I look for a champion that moved. So identify the play, run it in a manual, ad hoc way. You're going to get a bunch of learnings from that. You're going to learn how that might feel automated, and where where you might want to insert a person. So for this play, for example, maybe I need their address. So at some point, an email goes out that asks for an address and requires some kind of manual step. But once you figure that out, then you can automate, you can scale and automate that motion. And then that can just run in the background. And then your job as a RevOps professional is to go, okay, what's the next one? Okay, what's that one? I'm going to run the manual version, the ad hoc version. I'm going to automate it. I'm going to scale it.
Yep.
What's the next one? I just keep doing that. And then all of a sudden I've got these recipes. They're all stacked on top of each other. There's this great portfolio of go-to-market plays that are running. And if I'm doing it right, they're automated and they're scaled. And so I'm not just doing it to like 5 people that I picked, but they're being automatically selected, and there's more and more of them, and they're running automatically in the background for me. That is, I think, what all of us as revenue professionals are trying to get at. And, obviously that requires a great data foundation. It requires good tracking. It requires systems that map. But I think when you stack go-to-market plays on top of go-to-market plays, you really create lots of really interesting opportunity for your business.
Yeah, for sure. And I think one of the things I would love to kind of change gears and talk about a little bit here is the thing that you mentioned was, where's the point at which a human needs to be inserted, right? And that could be in order to drive better conversion, or it could be the fact that like we need a human to do something that otherwise like we would struggle to automate. Maybe. And so the interesting in the latter case of, okay, cool, like we need a human to like, write the opening preamble to this, this first email that's going to be sent to this champion or some other play. And so the interesting thing is a lot of the new kind of generative AI, large language model tech makes it such that things that previously required a human to do the thing, and maybe not do the thing in a very reliable fashion or what have you, can now do it very reliably and very automatedly. Like I know as an example, so like my account executives over here at Atrium, we've been big Chorus users for forever, and Chorus just shipped the automatic summarization, not just the summarization, but also I think the follow-up email drafting as well, which is an example. Like it's not a pipe gen play, but it's something that
a human would be
reduces
doing
time. Yeah, and like reduces time and pain in the ass for the account executive who like, maybe wasn't doing it all that great anyway, or was like, now I got to do this thing. I would love for you to share kind of some of the ways that you guys are doing, because like obviously there's the generating a follow-up email or like digesting what went down in a call, but then there's also like programmatically writing the content for outbound, right?
Totally. So the way we think about this is, and we have in beta a number of and so if you're a Zoominfo customer and you're on this call and you want to be part of this beta program, just send me an email. It's just henry.shuck@zoominfo.com. But we have a number of programs right now that our customers are using that will actually go and write you the content for your email. Now, what we really believe is that that last mile, although the most fireworksy part of leveraging generative AI, is also the part that doesn't do a good job unless the data that's coming into it is really well fed. Tight. Yeah. Like I can't write a great response to any number of customers if I don't know anything about their business. And so what we've been amassing, underneath every company profile inside of Zoominfo are job descriptions. We're scraping the site for case studies. We're looking at how they describe their own company, what industries they operate in, what technologies they're currently using, when their last funding round was, when their CEO got hired, when their CIO got hired. And so when it goes to write that preamble, it's fed with all of this contextual data. So that preamble or any part of the message can be really tailored and personalized to the company and the individual you're sending it to. And unless you get there, unless the data coming into it is, really contextual, it's very difficult to get something that's better than what a human would write. And so, we're looking at all of these companies that we profile, 100 million companies, pulling in their website data, pulling in their case study data, pulling in their executive data, pulling in their job postings, and then using that as the foundational layer to write that email.
Yeah. Do you guys, I can't remember, do you guys have 10Ks?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think that's like a great example of, it's like there are things that we would prefer our sellers do.
Yep.
And then the question is, how large is the lift, if you will? And reading a 10K is
a
very large.
Yeah.
It's a very large lift because it's like, I don't know, 50 pages or whatever, right?
But
and
full of information.
Yeah, full of information in there about like what's relevant and like potentially is. And so you could totally imagine, like, that's a great example of most normal AEs or SDRs are probably not going to be doing that.
Yep.
Right. And so if you then show up in the inbox of whatever decision maker is relevant to the strategic initiative that organization was talking about in their 10K, and you cite that strategic initiative in that 10K, because I was just reading it just for funsies, obviously.
Yeah.
And my hunch is that you're the right human who cares about this, predicated on this title. And here's a very brief paragraph on connecting that need, that organizational need, to what my offering potentially does, and how other customers have used us in the past.
Yep.
I mean, like, that's a great example.
Earnings calls are every quarter. You get to hear from the CEO what is happening in the business. They always cite case studies. So when I get on a call with another public company CEO or chief revenue officer or senior VP of revenue operations, the first thing I'm doing is saying, show me the last earnings call. I go into that earnings call. I just control find sales or go to market. And then I look at every time the CEO mentions their sales team, their go to market, marketing. And then I show up to that call like, okay, it sounds like mid-market is growing while enterprise is slowing. How are you thinking about leaning in on mid-market? And do you have the whole universe mapped? It's such a more interesting conversation when you're able to pull real-time insights out. And of all the things that generative AI does well, the one it does better than anything else is summarizing big blocks of text. So I can put in a big block of text like the chorus calls. That's an hour of people just talking. And I can say, tell me the most salient points in that conversation. And it's able to do that perfectly. And so even if you're just an AE or an AM and you don't have time to read the earnings call or the 10K, just go copy and paste it into ChatGPT and tell it to give you the summary of it. And then you can walk into the call with really salient data for that conversation.
Yeah, I think that that's the earnings call, and then the 10K stuff is really interesting because it's an example of, like, you were just talking about pre-call planning for CEO to CRO, conversation, very high criticality, high important meeting. So you're doing, the push-ups required in order to do that pre-call planning. Now, that's an example of a very fancy meeting, right? You're probably not going to have like five of those a day or what have you. But if you could, digest the earnings call, ahead of, 2 of your meetings a day or 3 of your meetings a day or what have you, and then have that superstar level of preparation, even though you're doing 3 of these a day. That seems like an amazing way to differentiate yourself as a seller.
Totally. You know how many times I show up to a call having just done that, and then the CEO, the CRO is like, wow, You guys did a lot of work on the lead up to this call. And in my head, I'm like, I did a little bit of work. I will take credit for doing a lot of work, but we didn't like break our backs for it. We read your earnings call, we picked out the main points, and then we showed up prepared. Now, not every company is public, most are not. And so how do you get that level of insight in a non-public company? Read their job postings. And, the job postings tell you an incredible amount. We're actually using generative AI there, where we get a feed of every job posting in America every day. And we use generative AI to read it and identify projects and initiatives that are talked about in that. So a lot of times a job posting will say, we're hiring a new VP of RevOps for a transition from Dynamics to Salesforce. Boom. We know the company is moving from Dynamics to Salesforce. Yeah, or to set up a new commission system, or to set up this, or set up that. And so we're able now, we've trained the generative AI to go find those projects inside of job postings and then post them as like key RFPs that are happening inside those businesses.
Hidden RFPs,
Hidden
right?
RFPs.
Like implicit RFPs based on hiring. That's hysterical. Well, wonderful. Well, Henry, this has been super fantastic, and I know that one of the things that we had kind of promised the audience here was that we were going to talk about how you can use data to make your pipe gen initiatives better, more automated, more scalable, adding new capabilities, and I think that this didn't disappoint at all. Are there any kind of like parting shots you might offer our audience here before we wrap up?
Yeah, here's what I would tell you that we think a lot about for our customers. Data on companies and data on the people who work at those companies, what their title is, what department they're in. That's foundational data today. You also need to know how to get a hold of them, what their email address is, what their phone number is, what their mobile phone number is. That I still think is foundational. Yep. The difference makers will make a difference in tomorrow's market by leveraging a broad amount of signals around that data. Who's visiting my website? Who's spiking on intent? Where's my champion going? Who's hired a new CIO, CFO, CEO? What insight is coming that's telling me there's an RFP or an RFI happening at the company? And how do I pull that information together so that I can be in front of as cliche as it is, the right company at the right time? And the thing about that cliche, being in front of the right company at the right time with the right message, is that it is a dynamic statement. What was the right company at the right time with the right message 1 year ago is just not good enough for tomorrow, right? Like the amount of information you have at your fingertips to have the right message, to know exactly the right company, to know exactly the right person is constantly changing. But that level of signal around the accounts in your total addressable market, leveraging those whatever way you can, gives you a tremendous advantage in today's market. And the people who are able to deliver you those best signals are going to win. And I really think, I'm 100% convicted of that.
Yeah. And I think the other thing too is it's not just the person and the company and the whatever that changes. There's also a little bit of the, the Red Queen kind of situation where like you have to, in Alice in Wonderland, you have to run faster just to stay in the same place. And what I mean by that is a lot of other people are adopting these plays as well. And so, these things only, depending on how far you are on
they give you an advantage for only a short period of time.
Maybe a year, maybe 2 years or what have you. So like the sooner that you can get on that, all right, and start, using that leverage, the better off you are, and you're going to be earning that advantage, during that time period. Well, Henry, thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with us. I really appreciate it. I know you're a super busy dude, and everybody, I forget which session we have coming up next, but I'm sure it'll be similarly awesome. Thanks, Henry.
Thank you, Pete. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for having me.